Cosmic Awakening, 1991. Peru, Journey into the Unknown. Sacred Valley of the Incas. By Makāula Nakae. April 28, 1991. Visions 2. Episode 21. Moonlight Meditation. We finished dinner, bundled up warmly, and waited in the hotel lobby with our flashlights in hand for everyone to gather. Tonight was our final night at the Machu Picchu Hotel, and we no longer had any open days left to postpone our starry sky meditation. In truth, a thin veil of clouds hung across the night sky. But regardless of the weather, as long as it didn't rain, we would be fine. Led by Edward, we made our way into the ruins. There should have been no one else inside the ruins besides our group. Walking through the nighttime ruins required watching our step carefully, leaving us almost no leisure to gaze up at the night sky. When we reached the plaza of the Intihuatana and looked up, the sky was completely clear without a single cloud, and a glowing, brilliant full moon illuminated the surroundings with an air of mystery. The ruins bathed in moonlight felt as though they were quietly breathing. Several stars twinkled with vivid brilliance. We sat down in a circle surrounding Edward and Hoshina, who were seated upon the pedestal of the Intihuatana. A few people crossed the rope barrier and took their seats on the pedestal as well. Then Edward focused inward and entered a meditative state. I looked up at the night sky and was slightly surprised to find myself feeling a sense of nostalgia toward it. It felt undeniably like a familiar night sky, eliciting something akin to homesickness. Edward's body swayed heavily before regaining its balance, and this time Ja-Zeawa spoke. "Good evening, everyone." Ja-Zeawa stated that our thoughts at this location would be amplified nearly 10,000 times, compared to a normal state, whether for good or ill. The flow of energy itself is neither positive nor negative. What determines that is the movement of our thoughts. Depending on how we direct the energy of those thoughts, the reality created by that energy will take on different shades. If we project positive thoughts, they flow accordingly. If we project negative thoughts, they simply flow accordingly. Just as many other entities state, we construct our own reality with the energy of our thoughts and experience it. And in that sense, there is no doubt that we ourselves are the creators and our own gods. Ja-Zeawa noted that there are only 3 places in the world possessing such powerful land energy, and the thoughts we think here become our reality and a part of our lives. Our thoughts are energy, and that thought energy governs the creation of our reality. If we can pay closer attention to the flow and formation of our own thoughts and consciously transform them, we will be able to create an even more open life, reality, and collective future. And we ourselves hold the key. Awakening on an individual level can exert a massive influence collectively. Through Ja-Zeawa's guided meditation, we performed healings on various matters, including our physical bodies. By holding healing thoughts in a place like this, those thoughts become reality. Amidst that vast vortex of energy, all sounds gradually faded away. Ja-Zeawa's voice, the voice of Hoshina translating, and even the sound of the wind sweeping through the sacred Inca city were washed away unawares within that swirling current of energy. And within that silent space, I began to see several visions. The darkness within my closed eyelids soon began to thin out like a gathering mist, and I started seeing another world as if in a dream. From a viewpoint suspended high in the air, I looked down at mountains covered in lush greenery. They were the steep slopes of the mountains rising before the Machu Picchu ruins. Shifting my gaze downward, I saw the terrace fields of Machu Picchu bursting with young green grass. A gentle light and soft air before twilight. Within those shining green fields, I saw a single 6 or 7-year-old child dressed in white running around. The moment I looked at that child, I knew it was myself. The child stopped running, approached the side of a man, and my viewpoint merged with the child's perspective. Through the child's eyes, I looked up at the man. A dark, majestic countenance. As I watched his gaze looking out toward the slopes of distant mountains, I became convinced that he was the child's father, and that he was Tadashi. For some reason, I simply felt that way. I smiled, and when I looked in the direction of the mountains toward which he faced, I felt as though I had caught a glimpse of something within that scenery in an instant. Perhaps the child felt it, or perhaps I felt it at that moment. I may have assimilated so completely with that small child that I could no longer tell the difference. Something indescribable in words, something like destiny. A premonition. Yes, the word premonition was perhaps closest. I sensed a premonition. I felt the future. And before long, my consciousness detached from the child's body, slowly drifting away while watching them, the townscape of Machu Picchu and the mountains enclosing it. Yes, it felt as though I had felt the future. For a while, I kept my eyes open and looked up at the night sky. No one's voice could be heard. Neither Ja-Zeawa's voice nor Hoshina's voice could be heard at all. Then, closing my eyes once more and turning my consciousness inward, the deep darkness before my eyes was once again covered in a white mist. And before long, a soft landscape resembling a gentle orange hue began to appear. Concentrating my consciousness on that emerging and receding soft orange scenery, what came into view was a large, gray, shining, monolithic rock of prayer. Two children were singing, illuminated by the setting sun, though their voices could not be heard. They looked younger and a size smaller than the child in the vision just before. The boy sitting on the left felt like myself. Sitting right beside him on the right was a girl. The two of them looked as though they were practicing a song. My viewpoint remained suspended in midair, looking down upon them from directly ahead and slightly above. And becoming a gentle bystander, I continued gazing at that nostalgically familiar spectacle for a while. Before long, the scene grew dim, replaced once again by absolute black darkness. And against that black backdrop, I beheld a blazing crimson flame. A solar prominence surging upward and spreading across the entire field of vision, reminiscent of a volcanic eruption. Against the backdrop of that burning red fire, a silhouette emerged, a long-haired woman with both hands raised high toward the sky. I merely gazed at the spectacle. I had no idea who the woman was, nor where that scene was taking place. Before long, that vision faded away, and the space in front of my eyes returned to darkness. After a short while, Hoshina's voice began to reach me, and I simply followed along with her voice. How the meditation unfolded precisely, I do not know. Then Ja-Zeawa stood up, instructed us to search among the stars shining in the night sky for one that drew our attraction, and told us to gaze at that star for a while. They stated that the radiance of that star represented the light and brilliance of our individual consciousness. I stared at a star floating roughly in the middle of the canyon on the opposite side of the valley. In my heart, I knew that radiance was not a star. It was obvious that no star shining in 7 colors could possibly exist in the middle of a valley. That was undoubtedly a UFO. Even while wondering whether choosing a non-star was cheating, I kept my gaze fixed upon it. Then, settling back into our sitting positions, we visualized connecting with that star through meditation. Ja-Zeawa left us with the words that whenever we recall the radiance of that star within our hearts, we connect to the sacred city, the sacred valley, and that energy is forever enfolded within our consciousness, before quietly departing Edward's physical body and leaving. It took a considerable amount of time for Edward's consciousness to return. We looked up at the night sky, occasionally turning toward Edward to wait for his awareness to come back. My eyes, now accustomed to the darkness, could easily make out Edward and every corner of the surrounding ruins. Presently, Edward's consciousness returned, and carrying the lingering resonance of the session, we simply gazed around the surroundings for a while. During that time, I looked at the star glowing in the valley that I had chosen during meditation. Psyche came over to my side and told me I chose that UFO, too. That UFO was still shining with exceptional brilliance, like a diamond, in the sky above the opposite side of the valley. Suddenly, someone pointed toward a section known as the Nobles' Quarters, crying out, "What is that? Look, something is moving over there. Shining white, can't you hear some music too? About 20 people or so are moving and coming toward us, aren't they?" Concentrating my consciousness on that section, just as the woman said, I could indeed perceive something resembling a luminescent shadow around the bushes in that corner. However, it wasn't a matter of simply seeing it clearly. It was like a layer of air where one couldn't quite tell whether it was visible or not, or a shimmering, transparent, mirage-like shadow. Then someone said, "There's someone there." "I can see it too," and someone else exclaimed, "Right now, something flashed," plunging us into a temporary state of panic. Then someone else shouted, "Ah, the star is gone. It was shining right there just a moment ago." Turning around, I saw that the UFO star I had been talking about with Saki had vanished into thin air. The night sky remained as clear as ever, but a few of the exceptionally brilliant stars had completely disappeared. Voices around us murmured, so it really was a UFO after all. Prompted by Edward's call, we somehow regained our composure and, feeling thoroughly reluctant to leave, began making our way back toward the hotel. Looking back within the darkness-shrouded ruins, there was no sign of anyone else besides our group. It felt as though the sacred city alone was alive, quietly breathing. We returned to our hotel room, ordered room service of coca tea from the restaurant bar, and chatted about what had just transpired at the ruins. I found myself pondering various aspects of past lives. It may be that when a person's spiritual growth reaches a certain level, a specific frequency of vibration synchronizes with their conscious mind, causing them to resonate with their own past memories or the historical memories inherent to that land. Particularly in places with a high frequency and an ancient history, it often feels as though memories from diverse dimensions and eras linger within the land itself. Therefore, when a vision resembling past life memory manifests in such a location, it might belong to the individual themselves, or they might be picking up the old memories of someone else. Alternatively, one might simply be witnessing the energetic memory retained by the land itself. Since the time my consciousness as a channeler began to bud, I had experienced in various ways that the more one's telepathic abilities blossom, the more capable one becomes of resonating with various frequencies and vibrations. Normally, when someone recalls a powerful past life memory intimately connected to themselves, a strong fluctuation of inner vibration occurs. There is a clear synchronization between the present self and the past life self, accompanied by a complete inner realization filled with strong conviction. And in many cases, people shed tears due to that intense shift, where the consciousness, energy, and vibration of the past and present intermingle and assimilate. Ja-Zeawa stated that the past, future, and present all exist simultaneously in this very moment. If we simply reach out our hands, all memories are within our grasp right now. Yet at the time, I hardly knew what to make of it. Everything was new, unfamiliar, and entirely unknown as a reality. And because I was skeptical, I couldn't simply rejoice unreservedly in various spiritual experiences. Instead, I had to walk gropingly, following wherever my intuition led. We enjoyed a long conversation, reluctant for this final night at the Machu Picchu ruins to end. Turning my head toward the others with my gaze lowered, I responded to their remarks with murmurs like "that's true," or "not quite," and the moment I closed my eyes, which had been open, I once again beheld a vivid vision as if on cue. In the pitch-black darkness before my eyes sat an elderly man with white hair. He held a staff in his right hand, and his white-haired beard fell in gentle waves all the way down to his knees. The imagery was closest to that of a god stepping out of Greek mythology. Moreover, the old man's eyes were sharp, intense, and shone like a flash of lightning. The entire imagery possessed a hard, tangible presence as though frozen in time. Yet, despite that, no sense of fear, discomfort, or awe arose within me. For a while, I simply continued gazing quietly at the old man. Then, because the imagery showed no sign of changing, I grew bored and opened my eyes. After looking at everyone's faces for a while and closing my eyes once more, the vision reduced to nothing but two glowing eyes. Yet those 2 points of brilliance were no less sharp than before, continuing to shine strongly like flashes of lightning. Ultimately, growing completely bored and thinking enough is enough, I opened my eyes and announced to everyone, I saw something weird again. Everyone remained as calm as if they were already used to my eccentric behavior and showed no particular surprise. Upon hearing that, Naoko asked, "Isn't it your grandfather, the one your spiritual healer uncle mentioned?" But no matter how I thought about it, I remembered my grandfather's face quite clearly. He looked entirely different from my actual grandfather, lacking the same sense of familiarity. And from that point onward, even after returning to Japan, I began to feel that the memory of that old man alone was strangely and gradually carving out a distinct place within my heart. Feeling the exhaustion of the long day catching up with us and realizing we needed sufficient sleep for the pre-dawn meditation the following morning, we swiftly cut our conversation short, returned to our rooms, and slipped into bed. Ever since the journey began, we hadn't managed to get adequate sleep, much like a school field trip. So at that moment, frankly, we were completely out cold. Beside me, Tadashi lay breathing softly in his sleep. As drowsiness washed over me, I wondered whether he had truly ever been my father in a past life. It was undeniably clear that every single person participating in the tour shared a strong, distinct connection. Drifting down into a deep sleep, I recalled the imagery of the past life memory from earlier. Feeling my consciousness rapidly fading away, I thought to myself that I would never forget that gentle sunset sky within my memory. To be continued. Watch and listen. Watch the cinematic video trailer. Listen to the full podcast now. Explore the archived Cosmic Awakening Volume 1, 1991, Peru, Journey into the Unknown. Sacred Valley of the Incas. Volume 2, Ascension 2012, The Golden Alchemy. Part 3, The First Contact. Join the journey. New episodes drop periodically. Each chapter delivers a tight, hyper-focused 10 to 30-minute hit of real-life experiences, perfect for your daily plunge into consciousness exploration. Subscribe to support your inner development. Thumbs up to help push our channel through the algorithm. Comment below. Share your thoughts on today's episode.